Fourth area is construction site stormwater runoff. Fifth area is after the projects are all done and there's if there are any ponds or post-construction measures that have to be maintained over time. That's monitored under this. And then the final thing is your various municipal operations, buildings, parks, highway garage, those type of things. So those are the 6 categories that are covered by the permit. There's an annual report that's prepared and submitted to the DEC recording the activities that are done in the township. You should hopefully have a copy of that. This is what it looks like if you haven't seen it. 37 pages long or so of information. There was a draft prepared. It was posted on the town website, and it is out there and available for comment. I'd be willing to go into any level of detail you wanted me to tonight. What I was going to do, though, is kind of summarize what the goals were for the year, tell you how we did on those goals, and then outline the goals for next year. If you aren't all that familiar with where to find this stormwater information pretty easily, this is a screenshot from your website, town website. Right up on the top here, there's a nice little link for stormwater. If you click on that link, it'll take you to a page, and then all the necessary information or that you want to find is available on that page, including places to post comments.
Joe, do you need this resolution done tonight?
No, I don't. The resolution is really just to allow you to sign the application. My recommendation would be to keep this open as a draft for 2 more weeks until your next meeting.
Our next meeting is next Wednesday.
Yes. And then actually adopt it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Is there a requirement for the public hearing?
There's not a time frame on it. We've done that for the courtesy of the public so they can see it.
Yeah. It's just a public information. It's not a public meeting. It's not a public meeting. So we could do it next Wednesday.
Yes, you could.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Change that.
In terms of the activities that went on over the past 12 months, the last year's annual report was submitted on May 8th. They have to be submitted before June 1st. So that was submitted on time. We did actually get 1 comment back from the DEC on the report, so they do read it. There was, if you've looked at this at all, there's a lot of little dots that have to be circled and filled in. There was 1 dot that wasn't filled in on the report, telling them where they could find the town stormwater management plan, and that is down in the stormwater, or the building department office. So we corrected that and sent the updated page in on August 31st. Over the last 12 months in the area of public education, Tom's done a real nice job in the, I'm trying to get my bearings here, the town clerk's office, which I think is right on the other side of that wall. He has all of the stormwater brochures posted on the wall there in a nice organized manner. They're numbered, and it's very easy to request those, and copies are provided to people. He has kept a list of the 4-hour training classes. Contractors are supposed to have 4 hours of training in environmental or in erosion and sediment control, and those go on throughout the year. Tom's kept an updated list so folks can contact him and find out when they're going on. And then the last thing was keeping the website up to date, and that's happened throughout the year. In terms of public involvement, main area there is reaching out and working in conjunction with the Rosendale Environmental Commission and trying to, all the public events that they're involved with, encourage them to include stormwater topics as they organize their meetings. This year, under illicit discharges, there were actually no complaints that came in for illicit discharges. We have had them in the past, but this year there were not any. So it seems that the interest and attention to protection of storm waters is working and having a positive impact. In terms of construction site stormwater runoff, Tom does do weekly inspections, or the inspection reports that are done by the owners themselves are sent to Tom. So all the sites that were under construction over this past year did keep up with their stormwater reporting, and Tom did go out and periodically inspect the sites to make sure things were in order.
And that was, I'm sorry, that was just like, was that two?
Two sites is what you had over the past year. In terms of post-construction, one of the things we've been doing is trying to get our record keeping in order and get a list of any site that's out there in the township that does have ponds, rain gardens, those type of things. We were hoping to get that list completed. In the last year we did not, so we will finish that. The goal is to get that finished this year so that they can be inspected annually, and if there's maintenance, for instance, the pond's filled with sediment and not functioning properly, then the owner or the person that's responsible for taking care of it can be notified so that they can get that done. The final area under municipal operations, the stormwater officer did work with the various departments, highway, water and sewer, and he did distribute self-assessment audit forms to them so that they could use that on a regular basis to record how their operations were performing. So that's what happened over the past year. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Joe, about, well, it's on MCM 3, page 2 of 4, it says. It was, you know, it notes one illicit discharge, but it's not maybe typical, it's from illegal dumping.
Actually, you're correct. Those numbers, in fact, I have those circled here to go through with Tom, and that is one of the things that he does need to update. I was told by him verbally that there were none, so that needs
That was
to be
from last
corrected.
year, right?
Yep.
I had one last year.
Yep. Thank you. Yes, sir.
MCM 3, page 4 of 4. I don't know if you need this level of detail, but item F, summarize stormwater activities plan to meet the goals during the next reporting cycle. The Environmental Commission is specifically targeted doing a Creek Week event in September of 2016, which will be very much, well, this won't be the only aspect of it, but this will be part of it.
When did you say that was taking place?
September.
That's for next, for the coming year.
For this September, coming up, September, yeah.
So that'll
And
be
that's,
next year.
No, but it says what you're gonna do.
it is, yeah. And then MCM 5, page 3 of 3. Item A,
Yes.
looks like there might be a typo or something.
Which one?
6A, MCN 5, page 3 of 3. And then 6, and then come down to A, briefly summarize measurable goals identified. You refer to a list, but it doesn't actually need a list.
Right. That was what I just mentioned earlier. We're supposed to, that sentence did not get complete. They're supposed to compile a list of all the sites that had post-construction measures. List of sites
Okay.
with post-construction measures.
Part of my day job is editing, so.
It's good to get comments and that people are reading these. Thank you.
Gotta prove it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike, for letting me stay.
Sounds good.
So we're gonna skip to number 6, and Michael Moriello is here for Fortune 488 LLC. And
Supervisor, board members, public, I'm Michael Moriello, I'm the attorney for the applicants, Fortune 488 LLC. Dennis Larios is the consulting engineer for the project. The project, as you may recall, we've been away for some months doing studies, is the adaptive reuse of the former Tilson School. About August 18th, I dropped off packets to all the board members, also to your consulting planner and to Mary Lou and the planning board. Enclosed in those packets were a March 28, 2016 report by Mr. Larios and an April 8, 2016 traffic impact evaluation by Creighton Manning Associates. Also, there is a letter report by Joseph Diamond, PhD, who's the consulting archaeological consultant for the project, and a endangered and threatened species report, which was also submitted by North Country Ecological Services. You also have a fairly short, by Mike Moriello standards, memorandum addressing some of the public comments and issues that were raised at the public hearing. More to the point, between the traffic and the issues that which Dennis has addressed in his report, and Mr. Larios' report, dealing with water, sewer, lighting, some of those issues that were more prominent, and traffic, these reports have been compiled. And Dennis is here to go through his report with you, also touch upon the traffic report too by Creighton Manning, and then we're happy to answer any questions the board may have with respect to the project or any of the reports. So, turn it over to Dennis.
Mike, could you read these out to the board?
Sure. Yeah.
Good evening, town board members and members of the public. I'm Dennis Larios. I tried to in my letter, which is dated March 28th, which handing out again tonight, it's in your package, and this colored site plan. Just point out, first of all, what has changed with the project since it was initially submitted to you. And although the site plan looks the same, it is pretty much the same except for the size of the septic system. The number of units has been reduced from 48 apartments that total with a total of 76 bedrooms to 32 apartments totaling 52 bedrooms. That is labeled on here, obviously with Rick Alfandre's revised illustrative drawing. But that represents a reduction in the water demand for the project and the sewer design flow of the project from 8,360 gallons per day to 5,720 gallons a day. It would be our intent in working with planning board, if you so choose, to act on the zoning request to reduce the number of parking spaces shown in the dark gray here. And you can see it on your handout, but we had taken the total site parking from approximately 40 to 97 in the initial plan, which was essentially 2 spaces per apartment. Not every apartment would have 2 cars, but you also have visitors, so we thought that was a safe approach. There were some objections by neighbors to the size of the parking lot. About a third of that parking lot new is already a paved basketball court that exists here. And this is where the existing septic system is. But we would propose to work to reduce that to some extent to a common sense number that's consistent with your zoning, and which I think is 1.5 spaces per unit. And we would be looking at that plus maybe some allowance for visitors, because the worst thing you could have on a site like this is no place to park, and people trying to park out in the street or parking on the site where they don't belong, on top of the septic system. But we think probably this last southerly strip of parking could come out about 19 spaces there, and still leave the 1.5 plus room for guests. So it'll be, in my letter, I tried to address the issues that were raised during your public hearing, verbally, and some in writing, I suppose, about water, lighting, septic, and septic, basically. And traffic, I hit on just with respect to that Creighton Manning was retained. They're a very well-respected traffic planning and design firm in the Capital District, and they were retained to do a report on the project. And they looked at Gristmill Road with respect to suitability as a travelway for a project of this nature. And they also looked at, in detail, at the intersection of Gristmill Road, Tilson Road with Route 32. Their study was, they did traffic counts, and they did level service analysis, and they really concluded that the level of service at that main intersection is B at the AM peak hour, and would stay a B as a result of this project, and is C, a level service C in the evening peak hour, and would stay at C in the excuse me, after the project was built. And that's summarized pretty nicely on page 5 of 8 of their April 8th report in table 2.
Oh, you need water?
No, I'll be okay. Sorry. So I assume that the traffic analysis will be reviewed by your professionals.
Yep.
I think Jill's getting you water. I saw Jill just leave. Sure, water will suddenly appear.
Yes, and the other thing that the traffic consultant recommended was removing a portion of that wall that creates for a hazardous curve.
Yes.
So that's great.
There is a short wall along the frontage in this area that obstructs sight distance down Gristmill Road, and being proposed as part of that portion of that that obstructs the sight distance would be removed.
Right there, Dennis.
Yeah.
And that slope would be tapered back instead of the fill to the wall to open up the sight distance. I have to tell you that with respect to water, we were not able to find any good information on the wells at the site, other than there's 2 wells that serve the school and the subsequent tenants, without problem. But I contacted the school district. They went through their records, found nothing on the wells. We found a lot of information on the septic system, in the design and approval of that when the school was enlarged in the late 50s. But the water supply, we just didn't find any really good, solid information on the wells. What I did do in my letter was try to outline what would be required during the project review and approval by the health department, and what the owner is willing to do also with respect to pump testing both wells and testing the drawdown, and if the neighbors are cooperative, monitoring the drawdown in their wells concurrently to demonstrate that there will be no adverse impact on the wells. I will say the reduction in the size of the project brings the 24-hour water demand down to 4 gallons a minute. We are willing, again, and this is outlined in the letter, to pump at 6 gallons a minute for 16 hours. We don't like to pump wells 24, and store the water for the peak usage that would occur in the building early in the morning and dinner time on till late evening. So there would be a minimum 1.5 day storage tank provided to handle all peak demands that would occur within the building. And we would pump at a slow, steady rate to replenish that tank based on a float level in the tank.
Question? It's now a good time already.
Whenever you want.
Okay. When you said if neighbors cooperated to allow you to monitor their wells, what would happen if it did show an adverse impact?
Well-
They would, yeah.
If it showed an adverse impact that could not be ameliorated with a change in operational design of the new water system, the plan would be to drill a well further away from their property to, and we have a lot of property to deal with. So the drawdown curve that occurs, especially in this is a large principal unconsolidated aquifer that sits under this part of your town in Tilson, and the backup plan would be to drill a well farther away from any neighbor's wells, and then obviously go through the pump test protocol on that.
Thanks for clarifying.
I don't think that'll be necessary with this level of demand and the fact that you're on an aquifer, but we are sensitive to those concerns and are willing to address those. That's an expensive process, so that involves hydrogeologists and well drillers to come out and do these tests and do the monitoring. So again, committed to do that. The question is, when does that need to be done? I do believe that this level of demand is not going to create an adverse effect. We are, there's a well here and here, I believe. They show in the survey that's submitted in the record. So we would, if they didn't cooperate, we would measure, as we pump the one well, measure the impacts on the other well on this property and vice versa. And so that's a basic approach on water. We would also do, there was a question on water quality. We would do a complete Part 5, New York State Department of Health, what they call Part 5 testing of the well supply.
It's all contaminated.
That's basically all of the contaminants that are controlled by both the Safe Drinking Water Act at the federal level and the State Department of Health, who has added other things above and beyond the federal drinking water standards in some cases. And again, that would all be done as part of the water supply design and development. With respect to lighting, and this was explained at our earlier presentations, we propose to have a very low level of lighting at the site, and will agree to comply with the guidelines for good exterior lighting plans prepared by the Dark Sky Society. And that's a document you can find online, 2009. That would include full cutoff fixtures, downward directed for all exterior lighting, avoidance of excessive light and light intrusion onto neighbors, limiting light spillage over property lines to 0.05 foot candles, which is a very, very low level of lighting, limiting the height of fixtures to 20 feet, and those fixtures would be back in the parking area, which would be, the 20-footers.
LEDs.
LED lighting. We would commit to, again, these are in the Dark Side Society standards, but a lighting level in the parking lots to be an average of 0.8 foot candles with a uniformity ratio of 20-to-1 max and min and 4-to-1 average to min. Lighting for sidewalks, which would be along the frontage here and around the back of the building, would be 0.2 foot candles average. Lighting fixtures to be LED. With respect to the septic system, there was some questions about the existing system. It does show on the survey which was submitted, essentially sewage comes out to a septic tank, and there's 5 dry wells there. System, and I showed a little more detail on the illustrative, one of the illustrative exhibits that was submitted with the initial application, but it's essentially a septic tank and dry wells using the sands there. Design flow for that was approximately 3,000 gallons per day back at the time when the school was operating and growing. And the plan is, we've done test holes and percolation tests back in the field, is to put in a new sewer to where the septic tank is, a new septic tank and a dosing system to dose 2 new fields that would be shallow absorption fields, absorption beds. Further away, again.
It's like this exposed sand and gravel beds.
Yeah. So they would be further away from both our wells and the neighbors' wells. The percolation tests were very favorable. Since we are over principal aquifer, the DEC will require some special design standards to go in the septic system, essentially to slow the rate of percolation a little bit. So that would be designed in, and that's discussed under E-septic system number 4. An intermediate soil layer may be added to the trench lines to slow the percolation rate to 1 inch equals 10 minutes. This would be over 1,000 gallon a day, so it would require also a subsurface discharge speedies permit to be issued by the DEC. The old system should have had that. At the time it was put in, there was no speedies permit before religion, but at some point in time, all subsurface systems over 1,000 gallons a day are supposed to get a permit from the DEC. Not every system like that in the county is caught up with the law.
Can I just ask, so who tests the percolation rate after, is there such a test?
Yes.
Who's responsible for that?
The design engineer performs the test, and then the approving authority comes out and witnesses the test.
So in that case, would it be our building?
No.
Or it is the health
In
department
this case, actually, it would
or DEC?
be the health department or the DEC.
Okay.
Normally, it would be the DEC on a small commercial system, but because the health department will be reviewing the water system, they may, in consultation with the DEC, agree to do both. Just had that situation at the Mount Academy for the Bruderhof, where the health department did all the reviews. But typically today, the health department only reviews individual household systems unless they have a public water supply review on the property, and then they would do both if the DEC consents. 10 years ago, the health department did all the reviews on all the commercial septics and treatment systems, but the funding line from the state to the county got cut off at some point in time, and the county stopped doing them, and the state had to, DEC had to staff up to do those. So I would expect it would be the health department here, but the DEC would be involved anyway because they would have to issue the permit for the subsurface discharge of 5,720 gallons per day.
And how is the storm water runoff of the building?
Okay, the stormwater runoff, this part of the site, the existing part would be a redevelopment, where you'd still have to collect and treat the stormwater. and the new development, which would be the new disturbances, which would be this parking lot, and this disturbances, it would be out in the field with respect to the septic system, would be covered, again, as new construction, not redevelopment. That will all yield a water quality volume that has to be treated in accordance with the DEC Stormwater Manual protocols. And there's several different alternative approaches that could be taken. But what they do say is if the soils can accommodate infiltration, they want the stormwater runoff from the site, and by that they largely mean from the paved areas and the roofs to be treated and then discharged to the ground water and not surface waters. So that would be the approach here. We show a stormwater treatment area. We expect that it would be back near the septic area, and there'd be a pre-treatment piece and then a groundwater discharge piece to that.
Has there been any discussion of, there was something, I think, someone in the, like, when there were public comments made, there could be even like a solar cover, like an awning or something over the parking area that would do two things. That would allow the stormwater to not be collected off the asphalt and then provide additional energy source for you guys. And I don't know if there's something that...
I know there was discussion at the public meeting on solar at the site in the parking area, but I don't remember that in relation to stormwater. But what is sometimes done, one of the protocols would be porous pavement, where essentially you use porous pavement and it acts like a filter bed, and then you have a filter media under the pavement, and then you collect that vertical downward flow through the porous pavement with under drains, and then run it to your discharge point. In this case would be the groundwater. That is essentially a way to slow down runoff and also to treat it as a treatment protocol. The one problem with porous pavement in this climate is they are still being perfected. We would consider that, and certainly there will be a design of the stormwater system that will be submitted for your consultants to review. And a SWIP prepared a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which is part of a requirement for any MS4 community, but that would be reviewed by your review consultant and commented on. And but again, the approach would be to collect the stormwater, treat it, discharge it to the ground using the DEC approved protocol.
So you have some green areas in your parking lots, and I wondered if those, you could consider green infrastructure, as forms of green infrastructure.
And one way would be to possibly widen these islands and use those islands as treatment, with a filter, like a bioretention area.
That would be ideal.
And it's all doable on this site because one is you don't have a lot of stormwater to deal with because it's not that big a site, and it's 3/4 developed already as far as what's going to get built.
There's no control, essentially.
And it's a fairly flat site, as everyone knows, so we don't have significant attenuation concerns because we're not going to be discharging it off the property. We're going to be discharging it to the groundwater after treatment. So
I want to understand, are you saying that it is going to be part of the plan to have porous?
Porous pavement would be considered. My likelihood would be more to use green infrastructure in the islands as the pre-treatment, and then bioretention.
You think that's a better way to go?
Yeah, I'm concerned about porous pavement freezing in the winter and not being porous for 3 months of the year. I'm concerned about the longevity of the porous pavement products. The University of New Hampshire is doing a lot of studies on it, obviously in similar climate, and there's been progress made. The county at the Sophie Finn School satellite campus, SUNY Ulster, did do it in the parking lot. I was speaking to Dennis Doyle. They really are not sure how well it's functioning yet. It's only been in, well, since what, last August, September. But they did use a porous pavement there. They were very site constrained on top of a hill with a lot of rock. So they didn't have the options we have here. I think might be better options than that. And they had to attenuate because they were discharging to school district storm drain behind MJM that didn't have much capacity either. So it tied into a city sewer that didn't have much capacity. So they really had to slow the flow down, filter it, do all that on top of a hill that was largely rock. So they had a specific, probably smart decision that that their engineer made as part of that project.
What about the runoff that's on the roof? I'm sure there's not a very good drainage system in there right now for runoff.
Yeah, that would be collected and piped to the stormwater system. Currently, it's probably dumped on the ground, gutters. I know largely it's a flat roof, but that would be carried and treated, calculated into the water quality volume, which is the volume of water for any specific storm, the first essentially 1.1 inch of the storm that has to be treated. There is a reduction for renovations of existing buildings. There's a reduction in that water quality volume requirement. But our attempt would be to collect and treat all the impervious areas to the full standard because it's going to be easy to do here. The original plan showed 3 septic areas. As I said, about a third of the flow has been taken away because of the reduction in the number of bedrooms, which is what calculates your design flow. I would also say that the design flow of 100 gallons per day per bedroom is a design standard that the state makes you design to. That is not what happens. What happens is 40 to 50 to 60 gallons a day per bedroom on an average. But that's a conservative design. So when they say 5,700 gallons a day going to be used, it's probably going to be closer to about 3,000 gallons a day. And that 6 gallons a minute will probably be 3 or 4 over 16 hours as far as the water demand. But we will design to the 100. We will and have to design to the 110. We just seen in all the projects throughout, and the city of Kingston did a study on this, all of their apartment buildings, Stony Run, Dutch Village, Stuyvesant Charter, all of them they did, and they came up with about 47 gallons a day per bedroom on an average. And some of the ones like Twin Ponds and Riverview, they're even lower, but there you have snowbirds, certain percentage that go south for the winter, so that brings the averages down. But it's going to be about 50 gallons per day per bedroom, and with the low water saving fixtures, and obviously people's habits have changed somewhat with respect to water usage, especially when you have to pay for it, and the cost, you know what it costs to run a water system, and what you have to charge, and some people crank down their usage. There used to be, 20 years ago it was probably 75 gallons a day per bedroom got used, and now it's closer to, or it's around 50 in actual use.
Did the parking lot location change much since we last saw you guys?
No, we haven't changed any of the parking lot location. What I'm just saying tonight, highlighting, is since the number of apartments have been reduced, that this lot won't have to be quite as large, this additional lot.
I was just wondering about that aspect of reducing it. It seems that the spaces that might be the most inconvenience to neighbors would be the ones that are hard up against this central lot neighbor parcel there. Mm-hmm. Is there any consideration that you might wipe out that runner? Those would be the most sought after spots too, because they're most convenient to the building, I would think.
Well, yeah, there's a string of parallel spaces here,
Uh-huh.
and then there's, and I don't know how the school function with these few spaces, but,
Right.
and then there's these spaces here that are against the back of the two neighbors in this string,
Right.
and they are the most convenient, correct?
Right, so that one that's in the backyard of those folks, yeah, that bunch. I would think that, you know, that'd be a lot of headlights kind of right in the yard. What's the buffer there? The
I
light?
think it's a fence. I think there's an
solid
electric fence there.
Right.
But I would take that to the applicant and see if he's willing to knock those out.
Right, because it's not only lights, but the car door slams and such,
Yes.
being kind of right in the fence could act as a soundboard and amplify the door slams.
Certainly a
These
good
are actually-
suggestion.
These are actually closer to the house than those are. If you look
The
at
parallels, yeah.
Yeah.
And these-
The ones near the building seem to be closer to the house than the other ones are.
Yeah, so sound would be more a factor there, but headlights would be more a factor than unless you stipulate back from the but that seems micromanaging.
Certainly going to discuss, you know, some adjustments to that. Those are the current spaces essentially that's, you know.
There's some spaces on the other end of the building. Is that area being utilized as best it can for parking? Because it seems like the least area, you know, like it's convenient, but it's also got quite a buffer around it, you know?
This spot?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been there. I don't really know how it was used when the school was active.
It's also the area that's going to be regraded some when the wall comes
Yes.
in, so.
Yeah.
That,
use-
that I figured it would be deliveries, maintenance staff, that kind of thing. Not, probably the principal got to park there and the secretary. Willing to discuss that as well.
So is there
Obvious-
handicap accessibility?
There will be handicap designated spaces, and the certain percentage of the units will be at least handicap ADA compliant with respect to, and I apologize, the architect's not here tonight, but we will certainly have a handicap accessible ADA compliant pathway from the parking area to the building. I'm not exactly sure how many of the units are.
I think the code calls for 4 or 5, Rick, I think it's actually in one of the submittals, but I'm not recalling the total.
And we will check on that. But as far as the site design, we'll have, obviously, the designated spaces.
It may actually be a little bit less now that it's 32 units, I think it may have gone down.
So for the ground floor apartments, like what for the access, do you like, is there a step?
There would be a step on some of them, and some of them would have a compliant 5-foot flat area in front of the door and a ramp as necessary to, at 5% or less.
With the change in the number of units, is there also a projected change in workforce housing as a percentage of the total initially? Isn't it initially 3 or 4
Yeah,
apartments?
you have to do a percentage of your total amount, yeah. So-
Right, so, but has the developer, is he going to scale it back accordingly, or is he still?
I would imagine the ratio would stay the same. That he would have whatever the code requires for 32 units as opposed to 48. As the board probably knows, and I've actually talked to George quite a bit about this, 32 units is a long way from 48 units. And this building's a big building, and to make it pencil form, it's not easiest leap in the world. So, but he heard the neighbors when they were here, and the board, and he got to that number without any cajoling by Dennis or I at all. He called up and said, I want to reduce it, so.
Do you know, and this is thank you, I'm just needing to clarify
Yeah.
things, I'm not assigning value to
I think it's
Yeah.
by percentages, so that's what it's gonna
Yeah.
probably,
Okay.
it'll still be a percentage.
So it would be basically.
Third,
th-
what?
3 instead of
So 4 or 5.
5.
Okay.
5.
Question for the architects, he gets free pass, but do you know at this reduced number of units, is the intent still to make the entirety of the building 2-story?
No, it's not.
Because the northernmost is the most visible.
This is the, the prior
Yes.
approach, I
Right.
believe they'll be scaling back on the amount of two-story within it.
It's just gonna be the
From the
same,
gym south?
the same layout it is now, which is the 1-story where it is and 2-story where it is.
Yeah, I believe there's no new addition
Right.
Okay.
at the
Although the
two-story
one-
This
level.
is your
Looks
two-story.
really
area.
low.
It does look like that now, actually.
I mean, I think it'd have to be
Looked even more like a
raised
chicken
somehow.
house before.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
The one part where the gym was is where it's like 2-story. and the
Yeah,
other
the
part
box.
is 1-story.
Thank you, that's huge to.
The combo
to
gym
point out.
cafeteria.
There's no adjustment, no
Ernie Hopper.
significant external change.
I'm sure there's gonna be some design change,
Yeah,
but.
you probably,
Right.
you'll probably have to remove a substantial portion of it, but.
Well, not as much as when we were raising the whole thing up 2 stories.
Yeah.
But now, I believe the only 2-story component will be the
The
gym
gym.
cafeteria area. Yeah, it's a toned-down project, so, and because of it, we can't look at eliminating some spaces that may be an annoyance, an inconvenience at least.
I see in the environmental report, there's bog turtle, but bog turtle is outside the project area, and there's talk of any clearing of trees just being done during hibernation, winter. But
Yeah,
it's-
we don't
doesn't
even
look
know,
like-
we don't really think there's gonna be any, this is all open field,
Yeah,
this is open field. The wooded area that's there is gonna remain as a wooded area. Basically, the new construction is the addition to the parking area as far as the site and the septic, which really becomes a green area once
right,
septic,
which is already field.
Just a couple, so I just got the material, so as I go through it after, it's hard for me to read it, right now, but I might follow up with some questions via email. But just a couple of things, and I'm also looking at the planning board, some of their comments. But the plantings, try to make sure that they're native, non-invasive, the landscaping that's done there. And because it is an unconsolidated aquifer, or over an unconsolidated aquifer, I would at least like to see that, there's basically a policy of not using herbicides on the property or anything that could contaminate the water for that area. That's something, I know you guys are just doing the construction, but if that's something.
Well, normally our clients, at least a lot of my clients, will not agree to no pesticides at all, but they will agree to an integrated pest management protocol. That a lot of them will agree to. I mean, we can talk to George and see what.
Oh, well, there's pesticides and then there's herbicides.
Yeah.
Herbicides are just like, to get rid of dandelion, to
Yeah.
keep your, and now.
Same with herbicides, you can still do an integrated pest management protocol with that too, but we certainly can speak to George and Stacy about that.
Oh,
you
Talking to a lawyer that went to ag school.
know. First.
okay. And I know a few of the commenters at the public hearing had asked about, like a community recreational space, and that was also in the planning board comments, so, if you could just talk about.
We did talk about that, we've talked about that quite a bit. Dennis had some very good points about having a community space, and I also addressed that to some degree in my written submittal, but Dennis, you want
I
to
just
talk
think-
about what we kind of think some of the problems with that may be?
I think it's a bad idea to invite the community into a private, basically apartment complex for recreational activities. I think it's going to be more of an impact on the neighbors than just, normal living apartment area. You do have limited, even though there's a field there now, there's a baseball field there, a softball with a backstop, and a basketball court. In my mind, right down the street, 5 minutes away, you've got a nice town park facility with a new swimming pool going in and softball field. And I think you have tennis there. I know the courts have some issues, but I mean, I'd much rather see the resources that he would spend on that here being shifted to a town managed park facility. I just think it'd be better for everybody.
It's-
So that's
and
it's
say
a
it in your letter.
payment to.
In the New York State,
the
under
park
New York State
payment.
law,
Yes.
that the legislature decided many years ago that you could make a payment in lieu of recreation fees. So that, and that's what developers generally do. Our client has, in my submittal, I touched upon it, we're willing to make that payment, and it's probably, then the town can really direct where that goes to.
It has to go to
That's-
capital.
It has to, yeah.
It has to be capital, it can't be for salaries.
Having said that, I mean, the owner does intend to put some recreational
Recreation for the-
facilities for the
for the
tenants
people
and
there.
and maybe visitors.
Yeah. Like
You know,
like
playground
right.
and, obviously an open field where they can play,
I
soccer
know,
or kickball.
like, when I was little, I lived in apartments like this, and, because it's basically a community, right? You've got so many people in there, your kids, and there was like a playground area, and, the neighborhood kids would come
Yeah, but
and
there's a
hang out with
difference
the
between
tenants.
doing it organized.
Right, no, but I'm
like,
just asking,
yeah,
I'm just
yeah. There's a
asking
difference
about
between
that
putting
kind of situation.
a few swing sets in a little gym area for the kids that live there, and they invite their friends over, as opposed to, here's a soccer field and a ball field, and everybody that, has organized sports there. That's a big difference, and I think.
Yeah, that's what I think is not a good idea, be organized.
And so, to me, it makes a lot more sense to ask the applicant to give a donation towards our recreation center, where we have all this failing infrastructure that we're trying to rebuild, and have some of that money go towards that. That's what I would like to see. To me, that makes more sense.
I mean, obviously, it's your decision, but the owner, I think, would prefer to have just the recreation for the residents and their guests, and not have an open public park type or little league or type situation there for liability and just for impacts of bringing a lot of people in, overloading the parking areas, noise.
Right. And you had mentioned last time that, when you're looking at traffic, and you're looking at the noise level and keeping this more of a neighborhood, and rather than, that's a lot more of an impact when you start lighting.
And I'm sure you have needs at your recreation facilities that
Absolutely.
have what,
Well, one of the thoughts that I had when we discussed this previously was whether there wasn't some way to use either the funds or the attention that's now being paid to the area to help create a safer way to get people from that side of Route 32 and Tilson to our existing recreational facility, whether it's as simple as signage or a trail sort of thing. It's not for you to figure out, but just where
Right
is that?
now, if somebody
It's
wanted to
tough,
save,
it's not
the safest way would be to, go past the firehouse and go to, come down
Yeah.
Elking and then take James Street. That's basically it.
Or
You mean come across
Bloomingdale
Tilson-
is used,
Tilson
and
Road.
then you start across the,
Tilson Road.
or Bloomingdale and Bloomingdale Road and then cross the Lower James.
That's true, they could do that too. But I was thinking keeping them off of 32, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, they gotta,
Yeah.
so that was my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that, I know everybody is concerned that they just got this, but we're not gonna, we know that there's probably gonna be some review and then maybe some questions we might wanna ask when we come back.
We haven't heard from your planner, I know,
Yeah,
haven't had
we did
any comments.
forward it to our planner to look it over.
So he's looking over all
Yep,
the
yeah,
lighting
yep,
and
so
everything
yeah,
else.
The,
Looking at all
And
the
remember that
reports.
this still would go before the planning board, so some of the things that we're talking about kind of the planning board's domain.
Yeah, and there will be like 10 sheets of site plan with all the details of lighting, landscaping, stormwater,
Right.
water and sewer that will all be developed in detail if you
If we allow
feel
it
that
to.
this is
Right,
going
our
to be
job is
allowed.
to decide about the zoning. Their
And they will
job
have comment and interplay, there'll be an exchange on every, site plans probably for months.
We'll have to decide too, because it's a coordinator review, that your board is the lead agency for the project, for the whole project. And we'll have to decide what level of review you find appropriate in terms of SEQR, the State Environmental Quality Review Act, with respect to the rezoning and the site plan. That's really for us, we'll have to find that out from you, not tonight, but we'll have to find that out from you where you are, so we know what level of studies to go. For instance, on the water, if we need to hire someone to do testing, we would probably get Robert Miller, a very good hydrogeologist, to do that work, so.
So let's see if Dave comes back with his review before next week. I think we did review it again, if everybody wants to next week. But if not, it's going to be pushed to, I'm going to talk to Dave tomorrow, see what kind of schedule he's on.
You want us to come next week again?
Let me find out where Dave's
Where he is,
at,
or-
yeah, and see what kind of schedule he's on.
Yeah, that's
And,
not a problem.
Because I think the board will have time, they'd like to spend a week reviewing it themselves and coming up with any questions they have.
Well,
Very good.
while this does not amount to an endorsement, I do want to just recognize developers done a lot between the public hearing and now. So, impressive amount of responsiveness.
Yeah, we didn't want to waste your time and they come back every month. We wanted to wait till we had some reports.
Yeah,
and-
no, we definitely appreciate that response.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gunnar, this is yours or you?
That's fine.
That's not next, though.
No, that's the only one Rick wrote, but that's the one. Downside.
Well, first he's gonna look at what Dave said, the studies they've done. Well, I think that things that Dennis brought up, checking out. What I think we have to do is figure out, what do we wanna ask? So that we can predict that zoning, I think. So that's what I think. So I'd like kind of wanna, Mary Lou, can I ask you a question?
No.
About this project. Do we, and Bruce had asked me this, is there any, they did send a report, a packet to the planning board. Do we want them to just keep them educated on it and review it, but not to refer?
No, you don't have to re-refer anything. We got their comments, and that's,
Right.
I mean, I have.
You know,
The
a lot
only
of
thing
it
with
is-
the planning board comments is that it's not people's individual comments, they're not like
It's
actual
not like, yeah,
planning
this
board
is-
comments. It would have been more helpful for them to say as a board, like. what
and it's
they-
hard on projects like this to get
This is what we got, so we gotta
consensus.
accept what we got. Because I did ask for that, and
Yeah.
that's, the planning board made that choice to handle.
And you know, it's
It's
not
like I asked
just
over-
here, I just had another town where it was the same thing. They could not come to a consensus. They had, 7 different opinions. So they
And
decided to hold them in public
I
hearings.
I had said to Bruce, kind of ask them to make a motion.
Vote on
and
it.
They're a wild bunch, they're a
They
wild
didn't
bunch.
do that, so.
Yeah, they just take a vote.
But you
I
know
just run
what,
the
it's
ball.
our job then to.
She doesn't catch
You're
me.
right.
Fine.
Fine, come on down.
Okay.
Um,
Told her to run for it.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Like Chris told me to run while I could.
Who are you gonna listen to? That's what I wanna know.
Chris said, go home.
We both signed it.
All right. So Louisa Duffy is here for the Mermaid Parade.
Where's the flags? All right.
Do we get
Are
to
we
sing
gonna
and
do our
dance
annual
again?
cheer?
Only at the
The end,
end.
huh? The end.
Only at the end.
Well, I'm gonna move the podium because I feel closer to all of you
Whatever makes you
than
happy.
the agents of Fortune 480.